So we're going to be looking at Yomi now, and the format we're going to be employing for our weekly review is going to be a debate format. Every week we're going to roll a die, and whatever comes up, that will determine the stances we take. So if the die result is even, I'm going to be taking the pro position. I'm going to tell you how much I love the game that we're talking about. If it's odd, I'm going to tell you how much I hated the game, and Patch is going to tell you how much he loved it. So we may or may not disagree about what we think of the game, but for the purpose of the review, we want to give you both sides regardless. You ready?
I'm all set. Let's see the magic happen.
It's even, so I'm going to talk about how much I like the game.
And I'm going to tell you about how much I hate it.
To begin with, the components. This game has been absolutely lavishly produced. Serlin went all out. It comes with playmats, for goodness sake. The first edition, 2 playmats that, I mean, the art's great on them, they feel great, they're a mouse pad material. This will be familiar to people who play Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively. We're kind of used to these. But they're very nice. They really, I mean, they make the game a lot more fun. And they even have help you to track your life point totals on the side. So they even have a nice function. The cards themselves are plastic coated. They shuffle very nicely. They have great art, tons of individualized art. They're really just a joy to play with.
And while all that is true, it comes at the downside that the game is very expensive. It is listed as $100 MSRP. While it is very well produced, that is a pretty big outlay to pay for it. And the designer has been sort of a tough guy about not letting other distributors pervade the game.
That's true. However, the mechanics are a lot of fun and they're very unique. You have it's very much a mental game. A lot of the gameplay here is going on in your head. It's not really so much about the card effects at some level you're optimizing your play, but really the game is about guessing what your opponent's going to do. Taking what he did, taking his hand size into account, taking his tendencies into account, and really trying to figure out where he's going, what he's thinking, if you think you can press, if you think he's going to press, and when to really make your move, make the big push.
However, it sometimes seems to break down. The game, I believe, can stop being tactical and start being a wine cup game where you have to try to guess. It's essentially who has the poison. You're trying to figure out when he's going to attack, and you just played an attack, so he might play an attack, but he might know you just played an attack, so he's not going to play an attack, so then you should play an attack. And it ends up in a lot of times
a little bit of reverse psychology.
Right. It ends up into a sort of very recursive gameplay that can be, if not bad, certainly time-consuming.
While the gameplay may be a little bit too, how should I say, bluff-oriented or poker-faced, there is still a lot of variety in what can happen. And that's what keeps this game fresh. There are 10 characters in the starter set in the complete first edition. There may be more in the future. Let's hope. But they all play very differently. They have a very unique feel, and they all sort of capture fighting archetypes. You have a character like Grave, who really feels like Ryu. You have the Stone Golem, who really captures the Zangief, sort of big, hardy, throw-based fighter. They really all have their own niche, and because they all have different statistics, there's a different distribution of throws, blocks, dodges, and attacks in every deck. You can sort of know what your opponent's going to play by doing a little more card counting and a little less guessing.
However, with those 10 people, there are certain decks that I should say are less than optimal. For instance, there's a deck in here, and at the risk of giving too much away, I don't want to mention which one it is. I'm sure our more talented players will figure it out. There is a deck that is not particularly strong, I don't think. It is often a deck that causes a lose. And within the, as Mike mentioned, the distributions, each one of these character cards has essentially full filler bars on them describing how much of each kind of card he has. These are not standardized. Certain decks have, I think certain decks have maybe 13 pips in there, and other decks have 15, other decks have 12 or 11. It's very difficult to judge with any consistency whether that means distribution or whether that means power.
A good point. Now, trying to pull ourselves out of our roles here for a second. In all seriousness, Patrick, I'm going to give the game a 7 on 10. I think you have some valid points, but I think overall there's a lot of variety. I can see myself playing this for a while, and it fills a different niche. You know what? I might even bump that up to an 8. I think this is a game that it ages well. I've grown to like it a little more every time.
If I had to give it an objective review, I would go 7.5. For similar reasons, I'd dock the half point if only because me being a math guy, the inconsistency of the distributions really sends me for a loop. But there are lots of things I love about it. For instance, there's one character, if I can pull him out of the box here, Jefferson DeGray, who the background of his cards are the U.S. Constitution.
The theming is very nice. I will give it that. And then with 10 decks, you have tons of different matchups. So between the uniqueness of the characters, the number of characters, the nice components, it's a very solid choice. You really can't go wrong with it if you can find it for a good price.